So here's what nobody's talking about. Meghan Markle's brand implosion isn't just a matter of failed projects, it's a masterclass in overpromising and underdelivering.
Would you ever do something just for the money? Yes.
Her podcast moment, dressed up like a bold foray into lifestyle media, landed with all the force of a soap bubble hitting pavement. It looked shiny, polished, even promising, but the moment people tapped in, they found something completely hollow. Meghan didn't just miss the mark, she erased the target entirely and expected us to applaud the effort. She began the podcast like it was going to disrupt the industry, claiming to uplift women's voices, tackle stereotypes, and start real conversations. But the execution? A meandering mess of buzzwords and empty self-praise. The very first episode was supposed to be a showstopper. Instead, it barely scratched the surface of anything meaningful, wrapped instead in careful PR scripting that felt more like damage control than honest dialogue. And it gets worse. For all her talk about being a female founder, Meghan seems to think startups are just aesthetic, sleek Instagram pages and vague branding, not grit, strategy, and actual product. She boasted about her lean, mighty team, but within weeks, 6 people had already jumped ship. Spotify producers fled in droves before the contract even wrapped. That's not resilience. That's instability masquerading as curated chaos. But she doesn't stop. She wants the world to see her as a self-made mogul, forgetting, or deliberately avoiding, the fact that her global reach, her Netflix deals, her press coverage, all exist because she married into one of the most famous families on the planet. And that's fine. People love a fairy tale. But instead of owning it, she spins tales of bootstrap beginnings and brand ideation that simply don't pass the sniff test. And what happened next would shock everyone. Meghan tried to reboot her image by co-hosting with a little-known British podcaster named Emma. The goal? Authenticity. The result? Crickets. Even with Meghan's name splashed across the promo, the podcast couldn't crack 100,000 views. That's catastrophic considering the media muscle behind her. Worse still, the interview lacked any real substance. Emma never challenged her. She let Meghan dodge contradictions, avoid hard truths, and skate past red flags with a smile and a nod.
You could rewrite your public narrative from scratch. Is there anything that you would do differently?
No, I feel confident.
One glaring moment, Meghan's take on imposter syndrome. When asked, she brushed it off, almost insulted by the suggestion. But imposter syndrome isn't about being a fraud. It's about feeling unworthy despite success, the kind of vulnerability that could have made her human, but she didn't go there. Her pride wouldn't let her, and that missed moment speaks volumes. And then came the infamous twerking in a hospital video. Meghan claimed it was a fun behind-the-scenes moment, but the context didn't match the timeline. The clip supposedly took place during a strict mask mandate period when visitors were heavily restricted. Yet there she was, no mask, full glam, dancing like she was auditioning for a viral TikTok trend. And here's the kicker. According to Harry's own timeline in his memoir, they were at that hospital during that same restricted window. So, what gives? When one contradiction pops up, it's easy to dismiss. When it becomes a pattern, something deeper unravels. Meghan seems to revise her timeline, her narrative, and her persona with each new interview. But people are paying attention now, and the math doesn't add up. Her stories stack inconsistently, her brand values shift like sand, and her message becomes harder to pin down with every polished post. Emma, the podcast host, looked visibly tense throughout the interview. You could almost see the discomfort through the screen. It was as if she knew this wasn't working, but had no choice but to play along. Every awkward smile, every unanswered question, every empty statement passed off as wisdom. It all added to the illusion of sincerity that no one really bought. When Meghan spoke about her entrepreneurial roots, she launched into a confusing story about learning customer service from her grandfather's antique shop, only to immediately contradict herself by claiming she spent every day after school on the set of Married with Children. Do the math. Both timelines don't coexist. And no one, not even Emma, called it out. No challenge, no clarification, just nods and more PR fluff. And when Meghan started talking about her legacy brand, it wasn't a deep dive into impact or innovation. It was copy-pasted marketing language, words like organic, visionary, and authentic, thrown together without substance. No numbers, no insights, no process, just jargon masquerading as strategy, a hollow pitch disguised as heartfelt vision. The irony peaked when Meghan claimed she doesn't fear failure. Failure isn't real, it's just learning, she said. But that's easy to say when you're backed by a golden parachute. Real founders don't get to play with house money. They risk everything. They mortgage their homes, they gamble with savings. For them, failure is a terrifying reality, not a cute Pinterest quote. Meghan has never had to bootstrap. She's never had to claw her way up from zero. And it shows. And here's the wild part. She tried to pass off her lack of restocks as a badge of honor. She claimed it was a good problem to have, that her products sold out quickly and overwhelmed her. But here's the truth. If she believed in her product, she'd be scrambling to meet demand, not casually brushing it off. It's not admirable. It's just poor planning disguised as exclusivity. The inconsistency continues. Meghan said she started her new social media account in January, but the account was created in 2022, a detail anyone can verify with a 5-second search. So why lie about something so trivial? That's what erodes public trust. If she'll distort the little things, what about the big ones? She constantly claims people are drawn to her brand, that her influence is what sells jam, not the royal connection. But the truth is brutal. Meghan's influence peaked during her short stint in the royal family. Since stepping back, it's been one misfire after another. Failed projects, canceled deals, and public skepticism. Her voice doesn't carry the same weight it once did, no matter how many filters you slap on it. And still, she never acknowledges the obvious. The only reason any of this exists is because she became the Duchess of Sussex. Every brand, every media appearance, every headline ties back to that title. And yet she treats it like some shameful secret, refusing to lean into the very thing that gave her a platform in the first place. That denial is what makes everything feel so fake, so calculated. She wants the glow of royalty with the hustle of a self-made mogul, but those things don't coexist when you won't admit where the glow came from. She's not Martha Stewart, who rebuilt her empire post-prison. She's not Gwyneth Paltrow, who leaned hard into her bizarre crystal-fueled wellness brand and made it work. Meghan can't commit. One day she's a founder, the next a humanitarian, the next a podcast host. There's no through line, no real identity, just curated performances. Even the misunderstood label doesn't hold weight when you consider how many people she's alienated. Friends cut off, staff left, collaborators walked away. Spotify execs called her a nightmare. Producers bailed. These aren't royal insiders slinging mud. These are American media professionals with no reason to lie. And still, she acts like the world just refuses to understand her. She says she wants people to tell the truth about her, but what truth is she referring to? Because when we do look at the facts, her timelines, her partnerships, her projects, they rarely match the story she's telling. She keeps getting chances, and she keeps fumbling them. People want to support her. They've given her the benefit of the doubt over and over. But every time, she lets the narrative collapse under the weight of inconsistency. She recently claimed that she's striving for emotional success, that she's still working on being fulfilled, despite claiming she's the happiest she's ever been. But that's the most revealing contradiction of all. If you have everything, money, marriage, media, and you're still chasing contentment, maybe the issue isn't external. Maybe the brand isn't the only thing missing depth. She speaks in layered PR dialect now, referencing my team without addressing staff turnover, calling her foundation impactful without explaining what it actually does, or describing her products as intentionally limited without saying why. It's not strategy, it's smoke and mirrors. Because if the brand were really working, she wouldn't have to explain so much. If the podcast had impact, it wouldn't need to be defended. If the jam was that good, it would sell without spin. If the lifestyle empire she paints was as authentic as she claims, the results would speak louder than the headlines. But they don't. It's all glitter, no glue. All polish, no performance. And maybe, just maybe, that's why no one's buying the jam either. That's a wrap on today's rundown. Thanks for hanging out. If you enjoyed what you saw, hit that like button so the algorithm knows we're worth sharing. Got thoughts, hot takes, or tea we missed? Drop them in the comments. And if you're new here, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you're first in line for the next drop, and we've got plenty more juicy scoops coming your way.